from the depths of Beale Street emerged a distillery that would produce Ireland's most famous whisky. A whisky that would be recognised not only for its iconic green bottle, but it would be recognised for its rich, robust and peppery taste. A whisky that we would all know as Jameson's. Now it may come as a surprise, but our founder Jon Jameson is not even Irish. He's Scottish. A fucking Scotchman making Irish whisky. But it was apparent from the time Jameson got off the boat in 1780 in Dublin, with fierce bravery and a timeless commitment to create Ireland's greatest whisky, it was evident Mr. Jameson had Irish in his blood. That's why every bottle at Jameson's today has a crest with the words Citromito on it, meaning without fear. This symbol represents everything Mr. Jameson worked for and believed in his production of Jameson Whisky. But not only does it embody everything that Jameson stood for, but it embodies the true spirit and the heart of the Irish people. So do me a favour. On this St. Patrick's Day, get yourself a bottle of Jameson, chum, and drink it. Learn to love it and be Irish, but be safe. Have a great St. Patrick's Day. Jameson. All right, welcome everyone. Doug here with the LincolnList.com. I want to welcome you to Happy Hour episode number 22 as St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day Happy Hour. So, whatever you're doing, if you're out running around or you're going to party this weekend, please be safe. So what better way to bring in St. Patrick's Day, obviously, than with a little bit of Irish whiskey. So I picked me up some Jameson. That's what we're going to taste test here. So let's just get right into it. Now I haven't had, well, I believe I've had Jamesons before. If I have, it's been a really, really long time, probably at a party or something. I just don't remember. But sometimes people ask here again, we'll go back, they say, what's the difference between bourbon? What's the difference between Scotch? What's the difference between Irish whiskey? As I said before, whiskeys are indigenous to the areas in which they come from. So really, Scotch is just from Scotland. Irish whiskey's from Ireland and bourbon's from America. Now, of course, they're all going to taste different because each distillery wants to put their own special flavor into it. Kind of like your mom's apple pie doesn't taste like the neighbor's. They all want to put their own little sweet sauce in there. So distilleries are no different. Everybody wants to create a different tasting, unique whiskey. Now this is going to be somewhere in the middle of a bourbon and somewhere between a Scotch as far as taste, and I'll explain. It's going to, if you're familiar with Scotches and some of the other stuff that we've tasted before, this is probably going to fall in line, or Irish whiskeys tend to fall in line with something more along a Highland or a Space side. Something maybe like a black Johnny Walker's, maybe Dewars, Glenfiddich, those kind. And what I mean is that, you know, when you're from the Isle of Islay, those kind of brands are really strong in their peat and smoke. This is not going to be strong in peat and smoke, but it's not going to be sweet either, like a bourbon, like a Jim, just a standard Jim Beam or a Maker's Mark. It's not going to be sweet like that. So it's going to fall in the middle of there. So if you're not somebody that doesn't like the sweetness of bourbon, or that's not a turn on for you, you don't like the ultra higher smoky flavored, richer Scotches, then something like an Irish whiskey will fit there. It will tend to be more of a smooth flavored, straight type of whiskey. So how about you watch me drink some of this Irish Jameson Whisky on St. Patrick's Day. I sound more like Shrek. I tried my best, but anyway. So the smell is a little bit strong with alcohol. Again, maybe it's because my nose has been broken 100 times. I don't smell very well. So generally, my opinion is when I smell alcohol, I start to think, you know, cheap. And sometimes that can mess up your taste buds a little bit because I want to smell those other flavors. So when I get like a rich bourbon, I can smell the sweetness from the bourbon, which I like. When I get the smoky flavored Scotch, I just want to sniff it like somebody just blew cigar smoke up my nostrils. And that just gets me all excited. So this doesn't have that. It actually smells like alcohol, but it doesn't smell like watered down alcohol like Crooked Fox or Cold Cock whiskey or something like that. It smells, and it's pretty clear too. It's rich looking, nice and smooth, not like Crooked Fox from last week either. So, you know, it's a clean looking whiskey. Let me just shut up and drink. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's got a good aftertaste, good smooth aftertaste. Now, of course, it's not the greatest whiskey, but I'd say this is probably going to be about a $25 bottle. It's going to fall in line with Johnny Walker's, Glenfiddich, maybe a Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is probably going to be, or bourbon like that's going to be a little bit more expensive, but it has a pretty good taste. It's a nice, clean, and smooth liquor, which is what most Irish whiskeys are like. As I said, they fall behind. So just kind of a quick review from my point of view, my taste buds. Again, this is what's unique about whiskey. Is everybody who drinks, it's kind of like just like wine, you know, everybody has a different taste buds and they like things differently. That's why I try not to be too pretentious when it comes to drinking this stuff. But if you're looking for sweetness, that's where you're going to find bourbons. If you're looking for a like a jack of all trades kind of whiskey, you're looking for Irish whiskeys. They fit that bill. And if you're looking for something that's extreme, then you go to like the Isle of Iles in Scotland, or you get the Scotches that are like Peat Monster, Lafroig, Lagavulin that really have a rich peat. But then if you like that Scotch taste, but you don't like the smoke, then that's why they have Highlands and Speyside, things like Oban, even from Islay, traditionally Glen Brudlotich that we've tested here before. They have several brands that are not smoky. So, you know, there's a unique brand everywhere, and I think if you're looking for just a good mid-price whiskey, Jameson is great. Other than that, why wouldn't you drink Jameson's on St. Paddy's Day? That's what we're here for. So cheers to everybody. Hope you're having a good time on St. Paddy's Day. Speaking of that, I wanted to talk about the truth about St. Patrick's Day. If you remember back to the episode we did during Thanksgiving, I talked about the truth about Thanksgiving. I've always been somewhat of a little, like, I like history. I never liked history when it was important, like when I was in high school. I was too busy doing other dumb stuff that high school kids do. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to, you know, kind of like history, because history always has great lessons for us, because there's history that we are taught to in textbooks as we grow up. For example, Christopher Columbus discovering America, which we all know isn't correct, but that doesn't matter. But when you learn about history, you learn some dirt there. There is some really big, dirty dirt down there in the history that can teach us lessons about ourselves. So we did the thing about Thanksgiving. I've never done anything about St. Patrick's Day. Never took any time to figure out what this is. So I'm going to read it online. Got to get the old glasses out so don't make fun of Four Eyes. Because there's always a story. Now, I'm reading it off the internet, so I guess that means it's true, right? But anyway, most of you already know that St. Patrick's Day is like, it's a religious and cultural holiday. You know, it's basically a religious holiday, but we kind of now celebrate it as a means to get wasted. That's really when people say St. Patrick's Day, they say they just do bar hopping, or at least that's what you do when you're younger. When you're my age, you don't do that. You learn about history, because that's what your life gets reduced to. But anyway, let's go through this. So I'm going to read this, walk it through. It says here that, you know, St. Patrick's was actually born. It wasn't even born in Ireland. Was born in Britain sometime in the late 300s. So here's a person that wasn't, you know, that's a symbol of Irish holiday. That isn't from Ireland either. Does this kind of ring a bell? Not from Ireland either? Interesting, huh? So he's not from Ireland either. And his name wasn't Patrick. I'm going to type this in. Some of you might already know this story. You could just skip ahead to the watch list, but I'm gonna put this in here. It says Maewyn Sucat. I know I got to be pronouncing that wrong, but that was his name, and he didn't like it, so he chose to be known as Patricus later on. It doesn't tell the story of why he decides he wants to be Patricus. He just decides, hey, I don't like to be Maewyn or whatever, Maewyn. I want to be Patricus. So maybe that was a hip name. So he decides that's what's going to be his name. Now, he's not even a Christian either, and does not believe in Christianity until he gets captured at 16 years old. So he's just like a young pup, doing his own, whatever, how he ever gets captured, it doesn't state it. But he gets captured at 16 years old by the Irish people, where he works as a shepherd and he's enslaved and works as a shepherd, you know, for several years. And during this time, he decides to convert himself to Christianity. This is where he takes up Christianity, I should say. And he learns the language, of course, in Ireland and so on at this time. Now, he's obviously not cool with being a slave. Who would be, right? So he decides, hey, I'm going to escape. I'm getting the hells out of Ireland, and, you know, I'm going somewhere. Now, this website I'm looking at doesn't say where he's going. He just goes. He escapes. And somewhere while he's escaping, he gets caught by the French. Again, I have no idea right now how he got tangled up with the French people somewhere on his way from Ireland to France to back to Britain. Who knows? He gets captured by the French, or so the story goes, where he's a slave again. So they keep him for a few more years as a slave, doing slave things, I should say. He's still practicing his Christianity. And then they finally deport him back to Britain. They're like, we're done with you, Patrick. Go back to Britain. So now he's back to Britain where this whole thing started, right? Back to his homeland. So somewhere along this line, he's in his mid to later 20s at this point. He decides, you know what? He gets a vision from the heavens, a ball of light, a moment of clarity. It says, you got to go back to Ireland. You got to go back to the homeland, not the homeland. You got to go back to Ireland, and you got to make these people Christians. So that's what he does. He just rolls right back in there. Now that's kind of brave. That is really brave. Here's somebody who was obviously a slave in a country and then comes back to the country and tries to fix these people. I guess that's why he's got a holiday, right? That's pretty. That takes a lot to do that. If you saw the movie 12 Years a Slave, could you imagine coming back and helping the people that enslaved you? Takes a lot to do that, huh? Takes a lot to do that. So that's what he does. And I guess to make a long story short, you know the story, I guess, that he introduces Christianity to Ireland. And so, thus, the story begins. Now, much of the stuff that they celebrate now with the holiday, I forgot, it was St. Patrick's Day. I'm already forgetting. Must be this. I have another drink. Must be this stuff. Such as the shamrock. Where did they come up with the shamrock? Well, this was his symbol to be different than others. So that's kind of where you get it. Also, when they come around St. Patrick's Day, this is green. Why is the Irish wear green? Well, they actually used to wear blue, but when they were fighting with Britain years ago, to distinguish themselves from the red, they all decided to wear green, thus creating this green aura around, you know, Irish people. So it's pretty interesting. So you'll kind of learn. Remember this, everything that happens today has happened in history. History dictates things that go on today or things that we know today, words that we use today. But the important thing about all of this is to understand that history always teaches us lessons. This is what makes it so fascinating. From right here, just from the outside, you already can learn that it doesn't matter. You got whiskey, Jameson, the most famous Irish whiskey, St. Patrick's Day, the most famous Irish holiday, and both of these people that originated these ideas were not even from Ireland. They weren't even born in Ireland. So it doesn't matter where you come from. That's what this whole story is. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what's in your past. It doesn't matter what demons are in your closet or what you've done or how big of a screw up you may be or whatever the idea it is you have. That if you believe in something, you know, obviously these were two people going obviously in different direction. One was Christian, one just wanted to make some booze, you know. But they were dedicated to whatever craft it was. So this is your life. You know, your life has a path. That path must be followed with passion and diligence, and you must always feel and think, no matter how crazy it is or what other people say, that you can achieve it. I'm sure that both of these people had haters. Jameson probably had him. I'm sure St. Patrick, he was a slave. So it goes to show you that, you know, it's unbelievable what the human body and mind can achieve. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, or what you've done in the past. The world is open. It's open for you to achieve whatever. That was pretty deep. Maybe I've had a little too much Jameson. I'm going to have another swig. So let's talk about stocks now, because I've done enough of this. All right, we'll start out, as always, taking a look at the market. And it's just slow-mo. It is slow-mo right now, just kind of going sideways, bouncing around. It seems like, as I kind of mentioned the last week or so, It just seems like unless there is an economical event, the market does not make very much of a move intraday. But that doesn't mean that there's not any other type of intraday moves with other stocks. I mean, you don't really need a whole lot. We've discussed that before when it comes to trading. You only need one or two setups, and you only need one or two stocks to actually move during the course of the week, which is pretty solid. You usually see that. So the overall market itself doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but we like to look at it because it kind of gives us clues to where we might be headed in the future. And if I can look at that now, it's been bullish. We all know that. It doesn't take anybody with any specific skills to understand that. Things been ripping, dips been getting bought at any case. I'm thinking, you're kind of parked at the 20 moving average right now. It's been kind of, I don't know, it's kind of changed a little bit, but until it gets under this 20 moving average, maybe, really until it gets down to this 50 moving average right here, which is 232 right now. If it got down to that and broke that, then we might be talking about a longer term in duration of a sell-off. Until that, it's probably just going to be business as usual. Now, it is floating around the top here a lot around the 239, so it's going to struggle a little bit. But as I said, unless you get underneath of the moving average here, the 50 moving average, it's still a pretty bullish chart, business as usual. Now, as far as we talk about stocks, WYNN is one I want to look at. It's always been one of my favorite stocks to trade because typically WYNN has been predictable. And that's what you like when you're trading stocks. It's not always whether it goes up or down. It's how predictable the thing can be. Some stocks just trade better than other stocks. Now, this is something that's kind of weird for WYNN, at least weird for WYNN over the last couple of months, in that they come out with a story where LVS, Las Vegas Sands, was interested in buying them. But, once that story goes out, you can see the initial rip on the stock, which was right here. Then those rumors come out to be denied, and the stock just keeps on going. I mean, it was at a technical breakout there, timely news release, I should say, right at a very important technical level, blows right through that. And the story is this red bar right here on this day of Thursday was when the news came out that they denied it. But you can see on Friday, didn't matter. Didn't matter. People are circling the wagon again, buying this stock. So I'll be interested in this, and I'll be interested in it right now more as a short. Of course, when there's buyout rumors that are overhanging a stock, they may deny it, but it could still be true. You never know that. Apparently, it was supposed to be 135 a share was the chatter. Who knows if that's true or not? Most of the time, I've got to be honest, buyout chatter and talk like that's just garbage. It just doesn't matter. It could just be stuff going into options expiration. Could be stuff, we'll talk about that in a second with Tesla. You never know what it might be. But if it gets vertical, I'll take a look at it. I think it might be a pretty good shot. Good shot for a short, for me. I mean, there still could be some long upside to it, but for me, it's probably going to be a short. Tesla is also something I'd like to look at as possibly a little bit of a short here too. It's probably not going to be a vertical short. It might end up being intraday. You might see some nice moves like that, but mostly it's going to be more of a bear flag kind of short where it breaks down underneath the level like it did today or Friday here underneath this 261. Now the issue with Tesla, and this is one thing that traders should always be aware of, is that, there is manipulation that goes on in the market. And sometimes it's just blatant and, this is what you have to deal with. And sometimes things just do not make sense. It was ironic, and maybe, there's no way you can obviously prove it, but it was ironic that Tesla issues this press release that they're going to make an SUV next year. And that gets this stock pumping up really nice right here. I think it was on Tuesday. Don't quote me, but I think it was on Tuesday. And that's understandable. People are going to buy into that story, and that's why they introduce it. But when you look a little bit deeper, and you look at something like this, it's like they're not really filling the Model X orders that they currently have right now. So they introduced that. If you remember the deal around the Model X, people lined up blocks to put their deposit down, and they had to wait a year to get it. And now they're not even getting their cars. They have to wait even longer. So they can't even keep up with production in there. So somehow magically out of the air, I'm not saying it's true or it's not true. This just shows you how stock trading works. Out of the air, they come up with this, hey, we're going to make an SUV, and and the stock rallies for 2 or 3 days, and then they turn around and they shove a secondary, which is a financing deal, diluting the shares. They do that a couple of days later. That's the only reason they issued the PR, was to get the stock to go up so they could do the financing. And of course, more people buy into the financing. So you can kind of see how this game works. It's like they continually do this stuff over and over again, and people buy into it. They'll buy into anything, and that's, it's the way it is. But I'd like to see this maybe as a possible short. We'll see how the next couple of days play out. It's hard to tell from this point, but there's some good range on it. There has been some good range on it to trade lately. Also, I want to look at FIZZ. Full disclosure here, I already got a position in this in both my swing account and I'm going to start one in my day trade account. I don't know what's up. The whole world has now been overrun by Faygo and Shasta soda. I mean, I waited a really long time to start this short, and it's a small one. But, I get it. You get earnings, you make a nice pop. It was pretty good news, I'll give it that. And it goes up. But this thing has just launched from $61 to almost $80 in a matter of 7 days. It hasn't even punched in a red day. So I'd like to short this, and I'd like to put a little bit more size. I got a very conservative small size for my account right now. But you haven't had a red day. So I'm looking at really trying to capitalize on one really, really good red day. Right now I'd work off of 80 and see how 80 works. I wouldn't short this thing in the hole. And what I mean by hole is I wouldn't short any stock right now in the hole. And that's any stock that's just like breaking down low of day, unless it's something that happens a little bit later in the afternoon. But a lot of these stocks that have been breaking down early in the morning and taking out lows have only snapped back and started to rip again. So, we'll see where this thing goes. I want to build a position here and try to capture a little bit more money on it. Also, AAOI, I've talked about this one several times in the past. Former runner, that kind of pulled back quietly, I should say, a lot like a ACIA. Now, what's typical of these charts when they're like this is they'll rally a big stock like this. It makes an absurd rally, I should say. This was 22 to 50 bucks. $55 actually. Then it just kind of trickles down slightly into these moving averages. These lines I have on my chart is a 10 moving average is this yellow one. 20 moving average is the green. Just kind of floats in here. You can see it's just kind of curled right off the 20 moving average on the daily. Just kind of curled back up. Big strong day on Friday. Now maybe you have something to do with options expiration. You get these quadruple witching days or whatever it might have been. You get some crazy stuff. But I'd be interested to see what this thing can actually do on Monday. So I want to keep this in for maybe a short on a rejection on Monday, but only on a vert. And I'd also like to look at ALNI as possibly a long here for ALNI. Now this thing I believe got hit a little bit on this Amgen. I think I'm quoting it Amgen. I always get Amgen and Agen mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it's Amgen. But you got a lot of stocks that took a beating early, like MDCO, which was a big trade for us on Friday. You got MDCO, ESPR were a couple that really got hit right off the bat, like say a sympathy hit, in that same sector. And this one kind of, look at this was a beast of a rally. It flushed early. Here was like 22, 23%. We talked about panic before. Really strong panic flush, gets down into the 40s, snaps back all the way up there to 49. So it's a impressive rally. But back to what I was talking about, ALNI seemed like it got hit a little bit, but not quite that much. And then it just rolls back to green. And now you're back up here towards this high, 55.61. I just want to see how this 55.61 translates into Monday. And see, if it builds around this level, I think the stock has a little bit more in it, probably somewhere to around a 60 test. That's what I'd be looking as a 60 test. All right, as I said, guys, it's been a good week. Good week of trading, good stuff. So if you need help, always feel free to visit thelincolnlist.com. But more importantly, don't forget the lesson. History always teaches us lessons, and you learned a lesson today. No matter how much I butchered up the story, it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what your background is, the mistakes that you have made, the path of destruction that you left, the disappointment that you may feel you have been to others. Tomorrow is always a new day. And if you attack that day with passion, and you want to get things done, you can see great stories about how people have overcome whatever diversities and have made something special. And sometimes things that have impacted us for the rest of our lives. So remember, the world's yours, man. You can do whatever you want to with it. You just have to believe in yourself and continue to work. So I'm going to finish off my Jameson. It's not a bad whiskey. Get yourself some on this St. Patrick's Day. Have a safe St. Patrick's Day until episode number 23 comes by next week. As always, feel free to send your questions, concerns, talks, chats, anything about stocks, support at thelincolnlist.com. Till episode number 23, thanks for watching. Cheers.